Today's guest on the Winning Teams podcast is Donald Thompson, who is the CEO of Walk West, which is a digital marketing agency in Raleigh in North Carolina. And Donald is also the founder of the diversity movement, which is really focused on fostering communities of inclusivity. And Donald is a very charismatic leader. He's a very charismatic CEO and is passionate about the subject matter of his organization really doing things that are going to help to develop and sustain organizations into the future. And this interview is really interesting for leaders and organizations who are facing the current challenge of the world kind of changing, and we all know and accept it's not quite going to go back to the way it was, but we don't quite know exactly what that will look like when it happens. But Donald has got some great views of how companies need to prepare for that event, because we will be coming out of this. As I say, what it looks like will be different, but Donald has got some very, very strong views and some great tips in terms of how you actually go about preparing for that. And also to understand a new way of working. And he talks about even in his own business, how he sees that being significantly different and a new way of working, which will really require people to think differently and behave differently in how you prepare for that. And also he talks about how you optimize your people, because your people being your greatest asset. How do you ensure that you're engaging your people and that you're preparing your people for the future? And also the fact that in this new world and this new pivot that organizations need to really embrace, there are some people who are going to, embrace that much easier than others. So how do you actually get your people, all of your people, to actually embrace that, and without having the impact of having winners and losers? And that's not what you want to have. So how do you really prepare your people? So really, it's great to have Donald on it. I encourage you to actually listen, to take notes, and to act upon it, and sit back and enjoy the interview with Donald. Don, you're very welcome today on the Winning Teams podcast. I really appreciate you joining us.
Hey, I'm glad to be here and looking forward to a great dialogue.
That'd be good fun. Donald, I'm just curious. I mean, in terms of the current climate, with everything that is going on, which is, unprecedented in all the words that people are using, a lot of companies that, I would come in contact, I'm sure you're coming in contact, are looking at, where can they cut costs? And you know that for very, very good reason. But what tends to happen is that, it's the marketing, it's the advertising, it's the PR, it's the people development that get the cut. In your view, is that, even though accept that you've got to have cuts, is that where they should be looking? Are they the things that people should be throwing overboard first of all?
Yeah, so obviously I have a bias, right, as a marketer and somebody that grows and deals in branding and messaging. But I spent a lot of time in IT and IT engineering and on the consulting side. So I have a varied business background. The answer to your question is marketing's the absolute necessity, like oxygen. And you need to look at marketing efficiencies versus marketing cuts. And when people cut marketing kind of unilaterally, what they miss are revenue generating opportunities within their existing customer base and new customers that the current economic condition has accelerated their spending. It's a little harder to find, but that's marketing's goal. The reason that marketing is something that should be heavily protected is if you believe you're going to make it out. If your business is on life support and you feel like you're going to die, then you cut so that you have enough oxygen to make it the next 90 days. But if you have any level of stability in your organization and company, you've got to find other places to cut so that you can be building your sales pipeline to create the momentum you will desperately need coming out of the crisis, number one. And number two, marketing is a great place to educate those buyers in your network and expand that network, because while people are slowed down with this pandemic, they have a lot of time to do research. You want them researching you, not your competitor. You have a lot of talent that has an opportunity that are thinking about their careers. You want them coming on board with you, not their competitor, because typically it's only 3 to 5 big client wins that move the needle in any company. So you have to target your marketing differently, but cutting it is it's a rookie move is the way that I would describe it. It is a short-term mindset for growing.
Yeah, I think that it's, I mean, it's understandable why people look at the discretionary spend, and you can get that. But I think that there's an element of being brave. I mean, if you believe that fundamentally your business model is just not going to exist, that's a different situation altogether.
That's right.
But if you believe that there is a future and you can see a future for the proposition that you have, I think that is good advice. I mean, in Walk West, I mean, your tagline, if I'm correct, is creative problem solvers. If I've got that
Yes.
right? Yeah. Okay. So at this moment in time, what are you saying to your clients that, people listening today can say, okay, I can take that away, I can do something with it. So what are you saying to your clients to really help them to be, and that Walk West is the creative problem solver?
So one of the things that we're doing real time, and I appreciate the question very much, is a lot of our clients are looking at ways to create virtual engagement in a manner that is similar, if not the same, but similar to those things they did with live interactions with clients. And because they've not invested the time in live streaming, in how to do professional webinars, and how to really, really supercharge their social media outreach in a manner that creates conversion, they're coming to us for two things. Number one, there's a certain set of clients that want us to do it for them. And then there's another set of clients that want us to do quick training sessions with our clients' marketing teams so that they can be empowered to behave at a higher level with strategic marketing than they ever have before. And so one is for us to do some of that work of moving online, right, with their outreach to clients. And then the second is upskilling, capacity building for their team so that they can take the resources they have and operate more efficiently.
I buy that. I want to come back to some of the things that you say in that, but I can hear some people saying, oh, okay, but hang on a second. If I am the traditional model and I don't have an online presence, listen, by the time I actually sort this out, get up there and start doing it, this will all be over. And what have I done it for?
Yeah. So one of the things is when you think about the term rapid prototyping, right? We think about the term hackathon on the technology side. One of the things that our team did is we actually rebuilt our Walk West brand over a weekend.
Yeah, I remember watching that, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, we did a team hackathon. We're now taking that thought process with clients and saying, here's what we can do with your technical outreach, with your web presence, with your PR in 5 days. And then we phase it out so that we have a rapid kind of an agile project where at the end of each week, we have a deliverable that helps your marketing, your web presence, or your PR actually shine. And then we can have a longer lead time over time, but we are creating marketing campaigns that generate real-time results.
And so, I mean, to give a sense of timeline, if somebody was starting today and said, listen, we got a real problem, we need to pivot, we need to be doing this, how quickly are you going to get me to have that presence and to be out there and with the potential to trade?
So we can set up an e-commerce infrastructure for companies in the small, medium business size, right? If you're an enterprise and you've got all kinds of different legalese with your contracting and different things, that's a little out of scope for something rapid. And quite frankly, that also means you're going to have a different infrastructure and a little bit more readiness. So for an enterprise customer, it's really tweaking messaging. It's really targeting specific personas. It's really auditing what you're doing so you can be more efficient quickly. For the small and medium-sized business, within 1 to 2 weeks, we can re-architect your business, your branding, your web presence, and create e-commerce tools that you can actually use real time.
I mean, that's really exciting because that is really giving a lifeboat to many companies, isn't it? That are kind of stuck a little bit, could be stuck a little bit like deer in the headlights.
One of the things that people do not like about agencies, and I don't like to describe our company as a marketing agency, but that's sometimes the bucket that we're put in, is that they over constrain everything and then the customer doesn't understand business value. Because I'm an entrepreneur, I want the smallest investment required, the least amount of time required for me to get phase 1 results. And then we build out and scale from there. That mindset is built into the DNA of how we work with our clients. That allows us now to move faster than our other competitors because it's built into the way that we're wired, that we want to do things in manageable pieces And then we build upon those pieces. Give a quick example. Let's say that you're a company and it's not web development that you're looking for. You want to create a video campaign that you want to push out on social and all your different media, but you want to target. So we did a $30,000 video for a client, and we got 800,000 end-to-end views of their video in their target persona. So what that means is we took content that we could repurpose, because everybody can't shoot new video right now. But there's B-roll that people have from other projects. There's videos that can be repurposed. The key is, how do you refresh the content? And then B, or A, how do you refresh the content? And then B, how do you create the targeted outreach so that you have measurable views of that content that converts to the business goals that you want? That's what we do, right? And that's the entrepreneur in us. Creative, and then business outcomes. Strategy, and then execution. Because I'll tell our team all the time, and this is something that's just a hot button for me, I don't want to hear the word strategy without the word execution tacked right with it. Exactly. Because we don't have time to invest in just higher level thinking of what might be. We have to have strategy, then execution, because everything today is about try, fail, and adjust, and continual learning that you can apply to help people actually grow their business.
Yeah, I think, I think it's so true. Everything is in beta, isn't it? I mean, everything is we're just kind of all the time constantly evolving. And I think that, I mean, it's one of the things that I admire from having done some work with Walk West, is that my initial perception of Walk West was that you're a digital marketing agency, and I actually realized that you're a lot more than that. But I think that your passion for actually really adding bottom line value to your clients is kind of so deep in your DNA, which is great to see. I mean, when we're coming out of this, and people are saying, oh, when this is over and we get back to normal, right?
Right.
and I've heard that comment, and we were just talking, Donald, beforehand about that. But, and I mean, who the hell has got a crystal ball that can actually say what it's going to like? But what are some of the things that you think? What is the business environment that you think we're going to be entering into?
So a couple of things, and obviously I've had time to think about this some, and I don't have all the answers, but I do have a perspective, right? And let me give a credibility point, and I'm going to answer your question. One of the companies that I ran grew 30% year over year for 3 years in a row in 2007, 8, and 9, right? Wow. During two wars in that the U.S. was fighting, the banking crisis, the mortgage meltdown, and all that good stuff, automakers failing, right, and a pretty significant recession, and we continue to grow. And while this pandemic is not the same, it has much broader impacts in many ways. There are some similarities about growing your business through the crisis and then thinking about post-crisis. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I learned in terms of post-crisis is very simple. Things are not going to go back to normal. There is a new paradigm that we're going to exist in business. And how do you take existing assets and strengths that you have and apply to that new paradigm, right? Number one is you've got to be very conscious of who your agile thinkers are in your organization and make sure you're empowering them to lead the charge in the new business. Because this is not going to be about process, it's going to be about pivots, right? It is not going to be about your standard operating procedures. It's going to be about people that are willing to take risks, take the value and the learning from those risks, and reapply those learnings real time in the marketplace. So you're going to have agile thinkers. The second thing is that people are not going to go right away back to large contracts. So you have to build your sales process and DNA from pilot to validation of pilot to scale. And clients are going to be able to understand that. But if you've got $1 million purchase order in front of somebody, you've got to figure out where that $100,000 test can create the testimonial, then create the leadership confidence to sign a big PO again. So it's going to take a longer lead time to get back to those big deals that we all love and get accustomed to. And then the third thing is that you're going to deal with a really powerful sense of fear in your employee ranks, because most companies are going to be going through some kind of layoffs, retrench, pay cuts, freezing of raises, all of those different things. And so in order to make sure that your employee base is still productive, you're going to have a higher level of transparency than most companies are really used to. It doesn't mean that all the news or what you communicate is going to be good. It means that if there's no information people are generally going to think about the biggest and worst boogeyman possible. But if you're transparent and you communicate well on a consistent basis, people are at least going to be settled that they know everything that they could know about what their future entails. But those are just a couple of thoughts that I see kind of in the marketplace of ideas that we're working on.
Yeah, one of the things that I see from the work that I'm doing with clients as well is that, the okay, people are working from home, and and I'm not saying in the future that everyone's going to work from home, but I think there's going to be a lot more working from home in the future. So it's going to be a bit of a mix. But and one is, okay, people have got to adjust to the actually how I manage myself in that new working environment. And that's one challenge. But I think even the more complex problem, and I'm working with a lot of my clients in this, is how do you manage people who are working remotely, right? Because that takes a very, very different approach and a different way of thinking. And even one of my clients yesterday, I had this conversation, and it was interesting in the conversation because within his division in a very large organization, he's got a mix of people right across the age spectrum. Okay, who are, some would have lived through a kind of command control type environment to probably come out of that, but they would have experienced that. And then you've got new entrants straight out of college who've got a very different way of working before all this happened. And it's how you manage the people in that particular environment. And to me, in the conversation we're having, is the need to actually coach people as opposed to just managing people, to coach people in exactly the environment in which they are in, because all of what you're talking about there, the change of way of thinking, that it's not the big kind of $10 million contract, but you've got to prove of and validate it early on. That's a different way of thinking. And yes, it's a different way of doing work, and you're going to have to bring people along in that learning curve. And I think that it's that shift in the learning curve. And I think that I could see some people, just not making it in that new environment. And that's just, I'm not trying to be doomsday about it, but I think that's just a fact. And other people are going to thrive.
No, I would add to that, right, and extend that point. It's those new sets of management and leadership skills that will be a dominant player in a company's success. Mm-hmm. Because there's a different trust level when somebody's working at home and you don't see them and you're not popping in for that quick chat, right? Because you've got to have people that are empowered to be, in a sense, more self-managed. And people that are self-managed need to be more self-assured. People that are more self-assured need bigger goals, more responsibility sooner in their career. You also mentioned something that's very powerful in terms of the generational difference. A lot of times, and we're doing a lot of work at Walk West in the diversity and inclusion space. And the easy perspective on D&I work is race, sexual orientation, gender.
Yeah.
Right. But when you put those in a bucket and you're working on those and people are nodding and we need to fix those, you mentioned something in terms of the generational work habits, the generational perspectives. And then how do you work with those different generations within the same teams? That is a very complex and business critical imperative in the D&I work that we're doing. And so I appreciate you mentioning it, because you've got to be able to switch hats as a leader across all those different spectrums and unify them. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited about the future because we have some tools and different things to help people do that. But that's a significant advantage to leaders that can do that well.
Yeah, and and I think the challenge for leaders, and as the conversation that I'm having, is that the everybody says, oh yeah, no, I agree, we should coach, right? it's a touch of motherhood. No one's going to say no. It's a bit like saying you shouldn't love your mother, and right. But not everybody knows how to do it, and right, because there's a process to it. And also the other thing that and I see it in the work that I'm doing with clients, is that one of the characteristics of being a good coach is that you've got to be somewhat chameleon-like and adapt to the different individuals. And it's the ability to do that is really important in this environment.
One of the things that has helped me in business is I'm the son of a football coach. And so I've been on the sidelines and watched my dad and his colleagues at Division I, which is the highest level in college in America, for American football, and deal with people from the inner city, deal with people of different colors, different backgrounds, different personalities, right? And you cannot work with everyone the same, but you're working with a variety of different people and personalities all in the same day and in the same moment. So you've now got to craft your messaging that you can have broad reach, right, at the same time that you're talking or coaching or motivating. And then you also have to get comfortable, just like we are now, we're not together, but how do you use video and the different tools to create as much authenticity and meaning as you can in the moments that you have with each other? And so I think coaching is one of the reasons that your business, I think, is going to thrive, quite frankly, in this new paradigm, because people are going to be very quick to understand the gaps they have between the way they behaved in the past and the way they need to behave and lead and grow in the future. And that bodes well for people that have the skill set, right, to help bring people along on that new leadership journey. And I think that's what it is. It's a new leadership journey.
Yeah. And I think also, and we were just chatting about this before we started the interview, I think that one of the things that I've seen that recent events has done is that, every business, your business, my business, any business, there are gaps and there are cracks in it, because it's not perfect. That's just why it is, right?
And hey, you've worked with our team, so you know it's not perfect.
and neither is anywhere. So I can look at the mirror, I can see loads of imperfection, and but one of the things that I think was highlighting is that, the business, the markets are moving forward, everything was great, business was, bombing along. And, we don't need to address those cracks because, listen, it's fine, But now those cracks are suddenly, there's an awful lot of light shining through those cracks. And I think it's the companies that are addressing those now that are going to be match fit for when we're coming out of this.
One of the things that is important for leaders, and I don't want to say I have this mastered, but I'm working at it, is how do you deal with the current situation that you're operating in and ensure that you carve out time to project, to think, to forecast, to model for your brighter future ahead. There's two reasons that I do that. Number one is I want to be prepared the best that I can. But number two, we're all emotional creatures. And if I spend all of my time thinking about the crisis and the chaos of the moment and the pivots and the pain that we're working through right now, my motivation can go up and down. If I balance it with thinking about things that I can do proactively to prepare for a brighter future, then my energy and my endurance for the current crisis stays high. And so I do it both from a planning standpoint, but the other thing is both from a personal motivation standpoint, is I need to keep my eye on the future so I'm willing to push through the current pain. And it's really important that we realize as business leaders that we need people to talk to also, right? We're processing all this new information and we're strong for our teams. We are, that model of leadership and conviction and enthusiasm in the face of adversity and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, we also have things that are going on that we maybe don't understand, that we're scared of, that we're concerned with. And there's a lot of leaders that are, I don't want to say second guessing what they've done, but trying to figure out what they want to do and be, right, in the next 5 to 10 years, given the crisis that we're all facing. And so I'm a big proponent of finding those people in your close circle and having those virtual cups of coffee and continuing that outreach with people that stretch you so that you can be the best leader that you need to be for your team.
Yeah. And are you spending time with your clients, helping them to kind of review their vision and their mission and their strategy? Is that something that you're doing now, or is that really where your focus is?
I would say our focus right now, we're working with one of the larger healthcare systems in North Carolina. And right now we're doing and focusing on pretty much crisis PR type stuff.
Right.
However, within those conversations, we're focusing maybe 5 to 10% of those times on things we might want to do in the future. And then I'm asking my clients this one question: how are you doing? And a lot of times, just that 5 minutes of somebody getting to share with somebody and that really wants to know, and I do want to know, right, is really therapeutic and helpful, because we're all handling a different stress level than any of us are really accustomed to.
I think it's true, and I know that the approach that you, Donald, and your team, West, you do take that very much, that kind of partnership approach
Mhm.
with your clients, which I think people very, very, that they really need right now, because they need that support. And I think the other thing that I'm finding is that I think that this, I would say that this is different to what happened in 2007 and 2008, because what happened, and yes, we got damaged, and there was collateral damage to that was caused, but it was across a kind of a sector or sectors of right. This one is hitting everybody, big, small, medium,
Yes.
doesn't matter nationality, geography. I mean, I've daughters in Australia, same restrictions. Yeah, this has just affected everybody, and I think what it's doing is causing people to be somewhat reflective of
Yes,
of
that's right.
of their own lives. Kind of, is this what I'm doing? Is this really what I want to do? Because when you're on that kind of journey where everything is going up and things are going well, it doesn't cause you to actually have a lot of deep reflection. Is that something that you're finding?
I would say that is 100% true. And everyone's doing that, right? Because to your point earlier, when you have a global pandemic that's a health crisis, right? This is cutting across racial lines,
Mm.
age lines, business lines. If you're a human being, right, on this planet, right, this COVID-19 issue is affecting you.
Yes.
And that means that one, people are realizing that we're all in this together,
Mm.
right? And number two, when we come out of this, right, you're feeling you're feeling more mortal. And when you're feeling more mortal, then you think about what brings you joy, what brings you meaning, right? What brings you true happiness, not just what brings you money,
Mm.
right? I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed. I've done a few things, and outside of my driveway, I've got two beautiful vehicles, right? One that my wife drives, one that I drive, but they've been sitting still for 3 weeks. And so I like literally, I went to the store and I'm like, why do I need this amazing vehicle to drive to the grocery store? How unimportant is this piece of metal right now?
Yeah.
Right. And it changes the way you reflect on the things, the material things versus the meaning things. What I do find that brings me back to my mission and the things that I'm doing work wise is I get a lot of joy about how helping entrepreneurs and creating jobs and growing economies. And so for me, when I reflect on those personal missions, it only means I want to be more selective of the type of people I work with. It doesn't mean I want to go off into the mountains and read poetry for the next
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
Right. It just means that I want to make sure that I can marry those things that give me meaning to those things that create an economic benefit and make sure I'm doing more of that. I want to be more successful so that I can give more,
Mm.
right? So that people in need are beneficiaries of my business success. And it is a time of reflection, and I'm absolutely doing that as well.
Absolutely. So, two questions that you believe that the listeners should be reflecting upon right now, if they are business owners or they're managing large divisions in companies, whatever. What two questions do you think that they should be asking themselves and getting their teams to reflect upon? What would they be?
So one of those that comes top of mind is really evaluating the strengths of your team and asking the question, who can really handle the emotional and business pressures of the moment,
Mm.
right? And those are the people that you've got to spend time with first, because that's going to give you scale within a crisis, right? Because you can give that entrepreneurial executive a little bit more leeway to solve problems for you because they can handle the emotional and the business pressures of the moment. And so one is how you're evaluating your team and how you're thinking about that. The second thing is more personal, in terms of what are the things that I'm really good at that can help move the business forward, and how do I get off my plate those things that I'm not as good at, right? So that I can give my company the best chance to survive and thrive. And I'll give you a great example from our personal work together, which I really appreciate, both your candor and your education in working with me personally. But you shared with me about a year ago that I needed to make sure, and then lawnmower. Uh, so I'll repeat, but you shared with me about a year ago that I needed to make sure that I got more operational efficiency within the business so that I could spend more time outside of the business and growing us to that next level. And if you think about some of the changes that you've seen us make personnel wise, leadership team wise, I have a lot of information and insight, and I think I've got good ideas, but I am a super fan of learning from people that have different eyesight and vision. And I've acted upon those things. And John, I'll tell you very sincerely, and I mean this, and I wish you were here that I could buy you a beer, a cup of coffee. If I hadn't done those things 6 months ago, we would be in more pain today. Because I made those changes when I didn't have to, based on your advice and guidance, and I moved some people into different roles that they'd be better at, moved some people and brought some stronger team members in certain roles. I now have a squad that is ready for this adversity that we're facing. And I'm very, very glad that really a year ago, you told me candidly a couple of things I may or may not wanted to hear. I jotted them down, I reflected on them, and the things that I understood and agreed with after that moment, I acted on. And that's helping me right now.
Yeah, I think you've got a really powerful team in place, which I think is great. Before we wrap up, Donald, 2 questions I ask everybody.
Yeah, sure.
Book that you would recommend and that has had a significant impact upon you and why?
So I'll talk about something I'm reading now. And obviously, our team is launching a D&I practice, the diversity movement. So people can go to thediversitymovement.com. But Harvard Business Review has 10 must-read articles on diversity. And if you notice on the video, all the tabs.
Yes, I can see it. You have a lot of highlighting in there.
I am a competitive learner. And so when I get onto a new topic, I really want to dig into it and I want to be as smart as I can be about it. So I would say the Harvard Business Review on diversity would be the one book that I would recommend. And then the second thing that I would do is that, and this is certainly this is a little bit of, we're in the marketing space, but I listen to Gary, I think it's Vaynerchuk on the marketing and social media space almost every day, not because everything he says applies to my business, but because he usually says once or twice a week, some super simple marketing hacks that can be applied on almost any budget.
Yeah,
and so those would really be the 2 things that I'd recommend.
And for those listening, we did a podcast with Jackie Ferguson on the diversity, and that was published a couple of weeks ago. So if people want to go back and listen to that, they can actually, it's a really good interview, and Jackie is a real expert in that space. Second question is daily rituals, if you have them, and what they are.
All right. So I try to work out every day just to clear my mind and release stress. And that's whether I walk a couple of miles. I used to play a lot of racquetball, but all the gyms are closed. So now I'm doing my daily walks and walk and jog. But the most important thing for me as a daily ritual is my reading habit. I want to put new information, new knowledge into my mind so that as I go through the day, I've got something that I've learned that's giving me that enthusiasm for new insight and helps me apply a more agile set of thinking throughout the rest of my day.
Okay. How long do you read for as a matter of interest?
About 30 minutes a day, always.
Okay. Yeah.
About 30 minutes a day, always. And then depending on what I'm into and what I'm learning, I may read an hour or 2 a day. I'll go in kind of aggressive spurts. So for example, I'm probably on my 10th book around diversity and inclusion, right? And because that's just a new business we're launching, a new mindset that we've got to get better. So I'm probably heavier, but at least 30 minutes a day in the morning just to kind of get my mind right.
Yeah, it's great. A great one. Donald, this has been fantastic. And I know that you've given a lot of good suggestions and ideas. And I think you've really provoked a lot of thinking for people listening. Where can they reach out and get in contact with you? We will have it in the show notes, but if people want to do that right now as they're listening. No, thank you so much. So walkwest.com is the website for our firm. And so if there's anything that we can do from a marketing and communication standpoint, we'd love to hear from you there. And then on my personal website, donaldthompson.com, if it's more a one-on-one kind of connection and personal feedback. And then I'd love for folks to follow me on LinkedIn.
And so those would be the three places.
Okay, well, it'll all be in the show notes. Donald, thank you so much indeed. I really appreciate you. I've taken up a lot more of your time than I said I would, but it's really been worth it for our guests, and I hope it's been worth it to you as well.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks so much. It's been fun, John, as always.
Take care.